welcome everybody. This is a byproduct and product people collaboration, founding a consultancy as a product manager, presented by Mirela Mus, who is the founder of Product People. If we can just click to the next slide, please. So what is a byproduct? It's byproduct, something Nicole and I have come up with at the end of last year and launched in January, and it's kind of born out of trying to find something, a place where product people can share and exchange ideas. So what we found is for senior people, some of the opportunities to keep learning can be a little bit restricted, especially sometimes in the meetup places. The senior people get asked all the questions and they don't necessarily get answers themselves. So we're trying to create a community where there's an element of trust being built, because if you trust people, you're a lot more likely to tell them where things went wrong, which is where you usually learn the most. So we're predominantly a Slack-based group with content created by senior people for senior people, experienced people. So that's the who and the why, I guess. And we can move on to the next slide really quickly. So I'm Mike Dwyer, I work for AmSource. We're an international talent business. I do lots and lots of work in product, which is why I help create byproduct. Nikhil, your 5 minutes of fame.
Well, like 2 seconds. I think a lot of y'all on the call also know me. If not, I'm Nikhil. I've also worked in product for a very long time. Lots of big companies back in the States. And then for the last 2 years, I've been here in Berlin, working for a couple of cool startups here. And currently, I am also working in a very cool fintech company here in Berlin called Penta. Definitely do check us out. And if you have any questions, reach out to me about that. We're always hiring also. And yeah, I mean, today is a super cool opportunity to actually talk with Mirela, who've also spoken before, and have worked at the same company before, Heka, and kind of learn from her a little bit around how she kind of applies these product principles to create and manage a business, right? And that also revolves around products. So it's super interesting, and I'm looking forward to it.
And just a quick introduction for Charlie. Charlie is the one who pulls everything together and makes it look like Nikhil and I know what we're doing.
Thank you, Charlie.
All the comms and stuff has been going out with from me. I'm fairly new to the AmSource team. I work in the same office as Mike. But yeah, it's great to be a part of this ever-growing tech community. It's fantastic to see quite a few people here today. So I guess with that, we'll pass over to Mirela and the product people.
So thanks a lot, Mike, Nikhil, and Charlie. All right. So I have an intro slide. I'll just skip to that. And title of the talk is about product people and how we came to be. So before that, I give you my quick intro. What do we see a product manager doing and being? Why did I start this company? What's the market like and use cases for us? And a fun tour of our world, because this is quite a new type of service. And a lot of people don't know how this compares to individual contributor or full-time employee type of product management work. So my background is about 10 years in product, had computer science degree, later did an MBA. I've also been leading product managers for over 4 years. And since about 3 years, we're doing this consulting and interim product work. This is some of our clients, most of them active. We have about 45% that extend and or recommend other clients. And we also have a few B2Bs known in their world quite well. And this goes back to our mission. So why do we work with these companies? Our mission is to help companies discover and deliver great products faster. And we do this 2 ways. One, empowering our product management community of about 6,000 members to share knowledge generously. This is also our third principle. And we do this also through our paid work of this interim product management engagements, where we do the unglamorous work of a product manager on a day-to-day basis. We onboard fast, align teams, and deliver outcomes quite fast. Sometimes people refer to this as freelance, although in Germany, freelance has a bit of a different legal connotation, but they like to call it freelance product manager or contract product manager or product owner. So that is the keywords that we cover. So going to what's a PM, there's a lot of debate around that, and I think this joke sums it up. Because in some companies we call product owners, in some companies we call product managers, in others we do the work of product operation managers, and in some they still utilize the product manager as a project manager. I don't want even to go into program management and how this entails and how it's set up. But as you see, there's a lot of uncertainty and different opinions about what this role entails. So I adhere to the Marty Kagan definition of discovering the product to be built and delivering this product to market. So we usually like to have the dual track discovery and delivery, but depending on the client setup, it may be more discovery or more delivery or more just like setting up the whole team to begin with. So we're not dogmatic. We generally try to solve for the client and figure out what's the best way to do that, regardless of what cool books or blog posts say about it. And I think with this pragmatist approach, it's from one of my favorite writers. This is one of his books from the Culture series, where one sort of spy that was sent out to sort out civilizations that were not on the right development path sums it up as everything boiling down to people and problems. So the culture, which you encounter throughout this series of books, is a galaxy-spanning advanced civilization that has solved all the possible problems we can think of right now to solve, including life extension, universal basic income, equal rights, including for AIs. It's quite a cool series. So if you're into this, I think it's the best I've seen, because the author genuinely tried to write a utopia, because it's very easy to write a train wreck or a dystopia. And then going back to the topic of our talk, why did I start a company? So this is, of course, doesn't apply to everyone. These were my personal experience and my personal reasons that I really like change. And this is also something that we try to filter for in candidates. So I like new products. I noticed that I like more of the first part of joining a company or discovering how things work and how do they apply various processes of methodologies. I also didn't know what I would want to do for the next 10 years. And that's usually the fundamental rule of starting a company, because a lot of people think they were going to start it and flip it in 3 years. But most of the cases, if you're successful, you need to be prepared to invest 10 years in this. I've also spent a bit of time doing this solo before I decided to have employees. And I also polled the market and understood like what the solo consultant / freelancers are doing, and I figured out it has no end game. I miss kinship and having a team where we could openly discuss problems, share wins, coach people, and get the support you need when you need it. Of course, this is not to diss on people who do this freelance. It's very good if you're buying time to float around your resume, especially for product leadership positions, which are quite rare to find, and also to test the water that you want to join a company before you actually join it. So I've seen some people do this as a soft non-committing way of trying this out and being able to dip out after 4 months instead of looking like a job hopper on your CV. So that has been also a good way if for people who are quite senior and can get to choose. They can say, well, how about we try this out for a month or so, and then you have a way that looks good for everyone to bail. So that is one of the use cases I've seen for it, but it wasn't for me. I wanted to influence companies and do good product management. And I've noticed that as an external person, I managed to have a higher impact than waiting for example, for 10 years to move up the corporate ladder. It's kind of an intuitive thing, but we've noticed this that external people, we are seen as less partial and also less ingrained in the politics because we're not after anyone's management role, or we're not competing with the other PMs for who's going to be the next head of product. So we can actually be impartial and say things as they are. And I think this kind of relates to our product work, because everything we do is part of a pattern. We have at least some say in, and I think the stronger PMs make their own patterns and influence other people's. The weak have their courses map up for them. So Ian Banks also has this, the weak and the unlucky and the stupid, because you can also just be unlucky in a certain situation, and this is how things are, and you're sort of going to suffer for it. And now the market and use cases. This is market matters more than anything. This is a cool quote I've learned from A16Z. And where we fit in this whole ecosystem of external agencies and consultancies and anything and everything, we would say we're the connecting tissue between dev and design shops who are kind of just told what to do and no execution. I know that even you folks at Penta work with some dev shops, but what I've seen with dev shops is that they recycle delivery managers or project managers or someone that just kind of shepherded the work of devs and calls them a product manager right now. And hooray for them, they have another headcount that they can sell together with the team that's going to say, yes, of course you need 10 more developers from us, and how about 15? Whereas what we've been brought in sometimes to actually say what is worth investing it and doing at the same time, and what are the outcomes that we want to achieve. And it doesn't matter if this is it with internal people, with external people, that's to be discussed. First, we need to figure out what's actually worth doing and not having this. Management consulting is also useful on its own, also depending on how much money you can spend. But usually management consulting kind of stops at advisory and giving you a deck or a sort of high-level roadmap. We've also been in some companies where the big firms were there post-acquisition or to set up the places. So Nikhil, you mentioned Heycar earlier, that was set up by BCGDV, but at some point these big firms pull out and they leave a mix of employees or other external staff that just jumps in and covers certain areas for an amount of time frames. And I think this is our sweet spot is also for companies where product fully influences their outcomes. So for something like Coca-Cola, this is still a beverage, right? It's not a digital product. But if we think of a company like Tier or Zalando or Scout24, everything they do, their main revenue comes via their app. So this is our, let's say, sweet spot for this type of clients, because there you need to think a lot about more things than just like, let's build an app or something that companies which don't depend on it's going to be very exciting for them that they've built an app. But from my point of view, it's still hard. Delivery still has a lot of problems to solve, but it's not the problem that we're excited about. We want to move some numbers. So our ideal customer is millions of users or millions in euros of revenue, where their product and the things that we do influences this significantly. All right, so then going back to our use cases, maybe this is a bit less abstract. Usually big funding round, you need to grow your product team ASAP by 1 to 5 people. And we all know how in Europe, this kind of takes from 3 to 9 months to fill in the seat. Then you have parental covers that can be 4 to 12 months. You have the churn of employees, so that again is a bit related to point 1, but it can also just be an ongoing factor. Or you have temporary initiatives for which you don't want to hire full-time people. And then the fifth one sometimes and most often combines with the rest, that you also need a bit of advice on your processes or to improve that. We've also had this as our main mission, but most of the time it just kind of ties in with one of the above. All right, then it's kind of hard to give examples of what we do, because what we do is so varied across missions and clients. And also we can't really talk about a lot of things that happen. So I try to use comics to give you something that we've seen happens across our engagements to some degree.
Mirela, do you mind if I just, we've got a question through.
Absolutely.
Do you mind if I just kind of raise it?
Yes.
Someone's asking, how did you get your first client?
That was a friend of mine who started working for, it will sound extremely stereotypical, you know, Californian dude drops out of college, gets $1 million in funding, then gets some other people to do the work. That was my first gig.
Good stuff.
So yeah, it's not something impressive. I don't think the first gigs are a problem, because I get this a lot of from a lot of people who are kind of disgruntled employees in some job, and like, oh man, I'm going to take up freelancing. Freelancing is going to be the best thing that ever happened to me. And I think getting your first or maybe second client is doable, but how do you ensure consistent deal flow of things that you want to work on, and that you also don't end up just like being the person who gets in the last bad leg of an assignment to just take a blame for everything that happened. You know, it's like also, so it's like from the deal floor, how do you get the actual cool things to work on? Because there's like a lot of bad stuff out there. And I was also talking with another agency that they wanted to send some things to us, and said we're going to send some things, and for some we're going to recommend that you don't take them, but we can send them if you want. So that's going to be one thing. Like, if you're unhappy in your job, you may be very much even more unhappy in one of these things, because there the expectation from you is to have a 2-week turnaround on whatever situation you're thrown into. I hope this answers the question. I wanted to give more context because a lot of people think this is the hard part. I don't think that's the hard part. I think there's like the consistency and just getting to understand what this role is and how it's a lot more different than being a full-time employee somewhere. Do I have a narrow specialization? No, but we do have areas of expertise. So we have people which are better in growth. We have people who are better at platform or technical product management, or just scaling on that part, and various industry expertise. So for example, regulated health tech in Germany, we have 2 people who've helped B2B SaaS, or working with applied science or machine learning folks on certain initiatives. So it's a mix of everything and anything. And I would say that the differentiation is not necessarily on domain, but mostly at which scale have you successfully operated. So you see that the more senior our people get, the more they can operate at a corporate size client, which has tens of product teams that all do things at the same time, and having this high level alignment with other product management folks and other initiatives, whereas more junior people can operate very well on a 50 people company if that's not too political or too complex or too much of a running disaster. So yeah, specialization counts for, let's say, fintech and health tech, where you need some domain knowledge, but you can also build this up relatively fast if you have good anchors. How do you manage the deal flow? So anonymous attendee, yes, I touched upon that earlier. So a lot of our clients come from existing clients renewing, which is a good thing, and existing clients recommending other people, or people we worked with at a client. Let's say we work with developer X at company 1, this developer X moves to company 2, and the product manager leaves or is not there, or so on. So the developer remembers, oh, I work with this person, and so can I bring you in? And that's also how we got a client that the developer recommended us to the VP of tech, and we had a chat and we worked together. When did you start to add new PMs to the team? Before or after landing a new client? I think we're going a bit more into staffing. So when did you start to add new PMs to? I think this is the whole chicken and egg problem. You don't get clients if you don't have interesting profiles, and you don't get the interesting profiles if you don't have clients. Because everyone we interview, so we had sometimes for some candidates, which was a bit unreasonable, is like, I want to know who exactly I will be working on. And it's like, well, we also don't know, because you first need to come in, we need to onboard you, we need to start socializing you. It's just this whole, it's even sometimes a bit like dating, that we've had people rejected for reasons that I thought were unreasonable, but just that there was no chemistry with the client. So we even joke about that with one of our colleagues, like whenever he gets praised as a client, it's like, remember, you are not as underqualified as that one guy said one time after an interview, because I got like, it's very mean and dismissing things from what seemed to be also like a price negotiation tactic, and we keep joking about that all the time.
Should we
yeah,
carry
I
on
think
with
we should, yes, we will.
because I think you might end up covering some of these things with your slides anyway, perhaps.
Okay, let's see.
Okay.
So
Right.
one of the fun things that you're will notice here is that ASAP is so ingrained in any speech that it's not even a thing. That right now, whenever we get a new prospective client, I mention if they don't want ASAP. So everyone wants everything to start ASAP, and they're also not even aware of their own processes and procedure, who may delay this for a few months. It was quite a funny realization, but it's also a little bit stress inducing, because for some, they are actually ready to start ASAP. So you need to be like, in a matter of days, clear your calendar and be ready for a next adventure. Or it may take 3 months, who knows? It can be both of those, and we haven't been good at guessing which one. It's always funny. So this is from X-Men, by the way. This is also, at least from the clients that we focused on, are usually ones with large European or global ambition. And that's also somewhat intoxicating and motivating for us, because it's always like, how can we win this? How can we be like the dominant market player for this and for that, instead of like, we want to do digitalization something. So I know there are a lot of agencies who just make a lot of money from digitalization something, because it's just very unsophisticated clients probably can be charged a lot more than ours, but it's also not fun. So I generally pass on this type of assignments, because I think that those type of clients are not going to be around for very long or do something super impactful. So I would rather have the ones where we think they're going to be significantly successful. So with them, we would also be successful, because there's going to be continued deal flow from them, and their people are going to end up in good places or a new company. So for example, right, Nikhil, you were at Heycar. Heycar is relatively successful, so now you're off to another relatively successful fintech in Berlin. Whereas if it was like some pet project of some old corporate who wants to rejuvenate itself with some app, then probably Penta wouldn't have hired you, because they wouldn't have considered the experience relevant. So sorry, I don't want to pick on you as an example.
It's okay. You can use me as a use case. I like it.
Yeah, but this is what we noticed as well. So for example, the people we worked with at Omio ended up being in a lot of companies, including Zalando, also a director level. So when they needed a maternity cover, they came to us, because they knew us from the previous workplace. So we see that this is a super cool network effect that keeps propagating. So we like it, and it's still also a lot of work, because usually we end up in these companies on at very high demand times. So the work and the level of ambition that we need to have for this is quite high. So that's from one of the images from one of the new X-Men series, where Charles and Xavier and Magneto are kind of building an island nation state together. So that's why the Empire reference. You also meet a lot of interesting people. So the level of network you're building with us, it's kind of 4 or 5x of what you would do at a normal company, or even more. Just imagine changing these missions, maybe having 4 different missions per year, where you meet a new team of developers, stakeholders, extended staff, and you would have that chance only when you change jobs as a regular employee. And then we also have the community where Mansour is leading, where you would host events, meet high-profile speakers. So there's a lot of benefit and network effect from that we hope helps our people's career, so that if they decide to leave us at some point, they're going to live on a lot higher level than they were before. And this acronyms is something that really shows up everywhere. There are some clients who just would talk to you in acronyms that we needed to build like an over 100 acronym glossary for it. And then with others who just realized, so Elon Musk had this rant at Tesla that the acronym was longer than the actual word it was harder to pronounce than the actual word it was replacing, which was like a tripod or something. So we have this joke internally that we call it the golden retriever role. It comes from a scene in Margin Call in a senior partner meeting where they're like in the middle of the night, like the managing partner flies in, lands the helicopter, ends up in the meeting room, and people start throwing acronyms at him. And it's like, if you can look on slide X on this chart on the number of blah, blah. And he's like, no. Talk to me as if I were a child or a golden retriever. It's not brains that brought me here, I can assure you of that. And so kind of having this condescending joke on them, but then if people start explaining things very simply and kind of see the nature and the gravity of the situation. So that's why we also have this, while we translate the acronyms that we try to adapt to the clients, when we put stuff together, we also have this new person experience. It's like, yeah, we don't want to make people feel stupid or not even understand what's going on, rather just use simple language, right? That doesn't fail. So this is, for example, the loss of crew and vehicle. I think this is maybe from Why the Last Man. I need to figure out which comic this is from, but I really love it. This is exactly like our work. And sometimes also the people at the company are not sure what this acronym means anymore, especially with metrics. It's sometimes scary. All right, and you also see a lot of ways of working. So this is from some emails we've got. I think this one, we agreed to cancel meetings but leave them in the calendar, was like the most surprising thing we've discovered lately. But I think there have been like so many funny things like that we just forget to screenshot. And then the other one, it's kind of a classic, right? You've all had this. All right. I think I have just a few more slides, and then we can take the last remaining questions. So we think our culture and internal principles define our outcomes. So we've been very focused on that. This is our 5 principles. So also when we hire, we kind of, aside from the very practical cases that we have, we also think, would this person be low maintenance, high result? Will they solve for the client? Will they spread knowledge thoroughly? Will they be candid to each other? This, of course, has some limits because some clients kind of don't like the candid part, but you can still give feedback privately or adapt to the fact that they're a bit top down and don't like people asking questions, but you could still have this for us internally. And of course, since we are a for-profit company, we aim for long-term profitability and growth. So we generally have hands-on assignments that are fictive cases, so people know we're not using this for client work. We don't value CV as much as more of like thinking how this person will perform. People get a lot of responsibility from the start, and we expect them to take up things, not to be pushed to do tasks. So we've gotten a feedback from an intern that he never felt treated like an intern, and he felt he was on eye level with a lot of the PMs. And I think this is a clear, good representation. We do a lot of internal knowledge sharing. We also consider that the client's contract, of course, is with us. So we as a company committed to this. So if someone is underwater or needs more help, it's for us to help there. But of course, the client will keep their main point of contact, and it's the duty of that person to figure out that there's more work than they can handle, especially for a period of time, or they lack some knowledge, or someone else has done something there that they can get inspired from or reuse part of. So this has been well praised for especially mid-level people inside of our company. They didn't know there's like so much help and resources available for them, because most PMs are just used to kind of being their own lone wolf warrior, attacked from all sides, and kind of keep competing with their peers for who's going to be the next head of product. So this takes a little bit of mind switching that it's not like like in the old places. And we also give open feedback to each other while being kind. So like always on the thing, not being assholes or attacking the person, but the feedback comes quite directly and it's like, okay, this needs to be improved and by this and by that. And we also share bad news quite first and admit to mistakes, because if we over deliver at the client, if we're having a performance drop and we're just meeting expectations, then it's better for us to notice this and go back to overperforming rather than it being noticed. So then we have to do like more work to get back to having a good perspective. All right, and these are some of our hiring principles. We like strengths, not lack of weaknesses. We all have weaknesses. We look at people who are courageous under fire, because you're going to get thrown into a lot of things. They're customer-centric, but they're also pragmatic. So if people are too precious about wanting to use only a certain methodology, they're going to have a pretty bad time, because that doesn't always work. They need to effectively manage groups of composed of strong personalities, and we all know that as a PM, this is kind of the day-to-day, and patient with action, patient with results sometimes. Yeah, so of course, this is now the shameless plug of joining us. We are a diverse and colorful bunch of people. We're distributed first, with most of the clusters being in Berlin, Munich, and Barcelona. And here is a slide the team put together that why they joined us and why they thought it's interesting. So you're going to see behind the scenes of a lot of the companies that we work for, and this is usually like not what you get from HR when you're interviewing. It's quite unfiltered, but also very interesting. You get to dip in and out of a lot of industries. So later you probably have a lot of other career choices. The third one is also from one of our employees. You get around 4 years of product management experience into one. You expand the network and meet interesting people. And you have a boss that actually understands what you do. Like a lot of times the people managing products in some companies don't know product because they've just been promoted on other criteria, and also because this is just a new discipline and there are that many people. All right, and I have more slides than I thought. So this is feedback, positive feedback from clients, screenshotted from various chats and things, and from many of our people. And this is, some of it makes it to LinkedIn. There's a lot of stuff we don't screenshot, and of course I don't want to take too much of the time here. And usually we're on productpeople.join.com, but you can also find this link on our website. So I think we also got praise for our recruiting process, including from an external person we got to advise us on hiring non-product roles, as Mansoor here is the only non-product role we have at a 20 people company. So we thought when we want to hire other roles, we should actually get someone who's done it. And that's it. So I'm happy to take questions right now. See, we have close to 20 minutes left.
Yeah, we have a couple of questions already in the in the box.
Yeah, well,
so do you want me to read them, or would you read them?
Can I ask a question?
Obviously, yes.
I'm going to pull rank here. I just think there's quite a lot of similarities between what you said and how I work. You know, I'm not a product person. I'm a recruitment agent who does product. But when you're finding a new client, you know, even if you get introduced, you know, recommended into that company, you don't know what it's like to work with them. And sometimes, you know, I like to feel like I'm working with companies that I like and that I'm, you know, happy putting people forward, you know, because at the end of the day, it's their job and their career. So I've kind of got a bit of a responsibility to do the right thing in that sense. But sometimes it's almost like that because customers are outsourcing the problem because they're bad at hiring. and there's a lot of resistance. Is that sometimes the same with products? You know, like, oh, we've got Mirela in, we've outsourced the problem, and then it's all on you. Or, you know, how do you ensure that it's going to be a collaborative effort, or do you just walk away?
No, so far we have not, because this is what freelancers do, and we had this already. For example, at one client, they passed on to us because they got a freelance person. Then they come back 2 weeks later. You know, after we spent 2 weeks onboarding the freelancer, he decided he doesn't want to work with us anymore for reasons. So we decided if we accept the client, we're going to accept that client for the initial amount of time. If indeed there are things that are incompatible with us, then we can also not extend the client anymore. But we think that if we make an initial commitment, we're going to try to make it work, because if not, we're as bad as entitled people on the market, it be them freelance or full-time employees who join somewhere, say, well, I don't like it, and leave, right? So I think for us as a company, we've made a commitment to a client, and we're going to stay for that amount of time. And then we're going to try to figure out how to make things work. So Mike, I understand the situation that you sometimes have. We also have sometimes this hurry up and wait, right? People pressuring us to start, and then they not being ready on that side, and trying to figure out what we can do to make an impact, and then basically take some of the load off them, so that they're not so overwhelmed that they can't even give feedback or things to do.
Yeah, I just find it's interesting when you've been brought in to provide expertise, and then you kind of give them like the honest truth, and then they kind of don't want to work with that. They don't like the answer, you know. It's kind of frustrating.
It depends. Sometimes people are not ready. It also depends on the dynamics. So we are usually fortunate to care for the dynamics of the person who brings us in. Usually in smaller companies, that's already the founder or a VP of product. So there's like not a lot of misalignment, but in bigger companies, if there's misalignment, we always go back to that person and say, well, I've noticed this here, I've noticed this there. Please advise on how to deal with these dynamics. So and if they don't want to take it, we've also tell them if we disagree. You know, this whole Amazon thing, disagree and commit. So we can say we disagreed for these reasons, and if we think this is going to affect our reputation in a way that the next person comes in and said this was total crap, why did you do that? We kind of try to put the strong worded warning into like, we didn't want to do this, but someone said that we should do, or do a little bit of this and maybe also help them come to our realization, but a little bit slower. So it kind of depends on some clients. Like some clients are very top down in the first 1 to 3 months until they know us, and then they're like, do whatever. So it sometimes kind of changes completely from being micromanaging into you do you. I don't know what you're doing there, but it's good. So it kind of varies. Or others stay consistent. They have their way of getting updates, which we try to accommodate. If it's more written, if they want one-on-ones, if it should be email, if it should be Slack, what's the frequency? Do they want to be involved in a lot of tiny things to feel in control, or do they just want to actually not be involved and not have any bandwidth spent on this? So I think this is more the, and also with product, I think this is one of the nice things, that we're not necessarily in charge of delivery. So even if it's like something that's because you're in charge to some degree of delivery, you're supposed to bring the candidate. So if you tell them, well, this is not going to happen in 2 weeks, it's going to take 3 months, they're going to blame you and say, you just want to charge me for 3 months. But for us, it's like, well, talk to the dev team. This is the input that I got from them. We could make this smaller by cutting this, or we could prioritize this and that, or we could do this adjustment. But in a way, delivery has its own say in this, and it's what their input was. I can't make commitments for delivery.
Cool, thanks. Yeah, I'll hand back over to the Q&A.
Sure.
I think that top question there has been answered. When did you start to add new PMs to your team, before or after landing a new client?
I've also answered that. It's the whole chicken and egg.
Yes.
You need to have people before you land clients, because else the client is going to ask, who am I going to work for? With.
Sorry, that's my fault.
No worries.
Someone's asking, sorry if this has already been covered earlier, but are you involved in the actual development delivery side? What's the handoff between you and tech/development?
Yeah, it depends how the tech team is set up. So in some assignments, we have one or two dev teams where we act as the interim PM. In others, we don't, because there's a lot of discovery work to be done before we can work with a development team. And the development team is sometimes fully internal, sometimes fully external from another vendor, or a mix of both. Most often is a mix of both. So we do some part of the product owner work. It again depends on the clients. There are some clients, for example, Zalando is a very mature product company where product is more in charge of business and strategy, and delivery takes a very a lot of the work that's usually done in smaller companies by product, of breaking down complex topics, estimating tickets, and a lot of other things. Even small coordinations between dev teams themselves, whereas at other companies, they even expect the product manager to do some initial testing, in some cases even regression testing, and to really manage delivery and chase after ticket updates and things like that. So of course, like while we prefer the first option, we know that this is not ideal, and sometimes just the dev teams themselves are not very mature and responsible. And you can influence a little bit, but sometimes you also need to do what's necessary at the client.
Yeah, I think that the next question follows on nicely from that, actually, talking about deliverables and that kind of thing. How does the client define that the work is actually done, and ultimately, how do you get paid?
Our contract setup is pretty simple. We have an allocated budget over an amount of time. Usually that translates also in availability days, because again, working with internal staff, it's very hard to explain to them, yeah, when you're here to deliver outcomes, and they're going to be like, what's that? But we can say, this is our area of responsibilities. We are available for meetings or FaceTime Mondays to Thursdays, or Mondays and Tuesdays, or depending on like what's the allocation, and that also influences a bit of the level of effort from our end. And for some, for example, if we have a dev team, you need a little bit more touch points and being in their daily stand-ups. So the rest is just monthly invoice. It's kind of a classical contract. I mean, I wish I could take revenue share from the clients or equity for others, but I don't think they would like that, and it would be very difficult and complex negotiation process.
It's a bit of a more personal one for you then, Mirela. Do you yourself still do projects?
Yeah, I was also I was our first PM helping on Zalando, because it was quite an interesting team, and quite an interesting thing on doing algorithmic outfit recommendation based on info you get from a machine learning model, things that the user did, and kind of tying that together with some business rules. So I was very hands-on on that, also because I was excited to work with appliance science folks, and this type of work there's not so often UI focus, but at the same time you need to figure out what kind of goals you put, even if the UI doesn't change, but the algorithm underneath put some things together differently. Right now I'm advisory on 2 clients, so this means like two days per month on that client, where we have another PM doing the day-to-day. So it depends, and I'm also supervising and taking care of a lot of stuff internally on all the ongoing client assignments. So people may come to me with, okay, I've had a mean comment from a stakeholder, how do I deal with that? Or this client wants to do X million euro revenue in the next amount of years, and they want me to come up with initiatives like how do we structure the process, and what do we propose that we think is feasible. So a lot of these things I answer internally. We also have a product lead, and we're also at some point growing an internal leadership team.
Fantastic. Next question, I think it's already been covered. Do you also hire non-technical PMs? But
Oh yeah,
I think
absolutely.
Manzo's case in point of that with his community kind of focus.
Yeah, well, we have a mix of technical and non-technical PMs, and also non-technical PMs have been successful on technical topics. So, for example, one of our PMs is now interim on a data sharing product, and he's doing quite well. And I think to some degree, people coming from a technical background actually have to train themselves to take a step back, because else they go and micromanage delivery too much, or think they should know everything about how this works, and then they get overwhelmed. Whereas if I don't know what I'm talking about, then I need to figure out like other ways to grasp how we measure outcomes, and you value more the function of these people who actually know what they're talking about in that area, instead of kind of going over them and saying, yeah, but I think you should do this like that because this is how I did it when I was a developer. That's not going to land you friends.
I think the final question someone asked right at the beginning, if we could just plug the byproduct side of things as well. There's a few slides after your one there, Mirela. Someone's just asking, how do they join byProduct?
Perfect.
So Mike, do you want to take them through this?
Yeah, so we've got a Slack channel, and that's where we all kind of congregate and share information and plug various events that our members have done, and then also the private recordings of those are all there available. So Pavel who's asked a question not too long since, he did the last event, which was great. The best way, check us out on LinkedIn, byProduct, or email us byproduct@amsource.io. And in particular, the people who have signed up through our Eventbrite page, Charlie is going to follow up and share this information, but I know some of you will have followed and got access to the event through Product People's Meetup, which means we don't have your email addresses. So if you're one of those people, ping us an email or find us on LinkedIn, and we'd be more than happy to show you the invite. I mean, it's basically open to, if you're a product professional who wants to learn and wants to get involved, then you're more than welcome, basically.
And I have a quick question, Mirela, for you.
Sure.
The nature of the service provided by product people is quite like I would say manager of chaos, right? You have to kind of get in an interim, kind of manage a whole product department, scale it, or sometimes even provide PMs that are providing support. Could you tell us a little bit more about the challenges as well as some of the strategies you might have for, let's say, onboarding and offboarding, right? Because I would imagine offboarding is also a very important aspect to it, because you want to transition it onto the next team coming up.
So we thank you so much for this, Nikhil. I have a separate talk on onboarding fast. And we also have an internal playbook on how we do that, starting from like the first email we send to the people that we work with, what kind of accounts we ask for, what kind of meetings we set up in the first weeks, what we do in the first weeks, and so on. And for offboarding, the same. That is not covered in the talk. So maybe Mansoor, you can share here in the talk, in the slides, the onboarding. Sorry, you can share in the chat the onboarding slides. And for Nikhil, the offboarding, it depends how we offboard. If we offboard because a new full-time hire has joined, usually we try to have at least 2 weeks of overlap with that full-time hire. And in the first week, they shadow us everywhere. Sorry, before they join, we start preparing a handover documentation with here's what we've been doing, here's what we've achieved, here are some open topics, here's like what is currently in discovery, here's what's in delivery, here are the meetings you're expected to attend, here's what kind of input you're expected to give before or in each meeting, right? You've all been in these roadmap meetings where you upload some cell in an Excel file or people tag you, right? So it's better if the new person doesn't get like a random tag in a huge document and they panic. Rather they're like, hey, this is the owner of the meeting. You can go to this meeting, or you can give input async, and then introduce them to the key stakeholders they're going to be work with. working with, and so on. So like the first week is shadowing, having all of this info. Then the second week, they are, if they're feeling comfortable, expected to take over, and then we're shadowing and we support. And then that's it. Of course, and in some cases, the overlap is about a month, but we've had also cases where clients were a bit more budget sensitive. So they were like, okay, the person has joined. We expect them like in 2 weeks to hit the ground running because we saw that you did. Like, okay, we can try our best for this person. And then we start like preparing more written things in advance so that at least we leave them with something when we depart. And then is the whole putting ourselves out of office, having the goodbye chats, having a Slack message that points to the next person, you know, just like kind of hygiene factors, but a lot of people don't think about them. So they just work very well for us so that people always know who to approach for which topic.
We've also got
Awesome.
one final
Thank
question if you've got time there, Mirela.
Yes. The why do I
no,
focus?
You go ahead.
Sure. So they said, why do you focus only on product management? Why not offer other services like UX, UI design, for example? Because everyone else does. So I don't necessarily aim to do anything a client would need, right? Of course, we get a lot of UI, UX requests because people sometimes confuse product management with product design, which is also fine. But I wanted us as a boutique consultancy to be really good at something, because no one wants to eat in the fifth best restaurant of sushi, right? You go to like to the nicer sushi restaurant, especially since you can get sick if you eat bad sushi. So that's why we thought of us as well. We don't want to be like pizza, kebab, sushi type of place. We want to do just one thing and one thing good for now. And if at some point we get people who are really good on, let's say, machine learning or user research or something that we think has more value add to product management than UI UX, we're going to get them. So far, UI UX also felt like an add-on that you either have the brand and brand agencies on one hand, there are design only agencies on the other hand, like some are even purchased by Accenture. And then you have the dev shops who also hire a bunch of designers and trying to sell them with this package. So I thought that we're just going to be like everyone else who kind of has mediocre people for everything instead of being just like super good on one topic. And product management, it's very wide on its own. There are so many micro specializations showing up. There are like so many interpretation of this role depending on the company size, the industry. I think just covering this very well it's a mission on its own.
I think that's everything for questions now as well. And we've timed it pretty nicely as well.
Yes.
But yeah, if you do want to join byProduct or get in touch with product people, then you've seen the contact details there as well, and this is going to be available on our byProduct YouTube as well. So if you want to watch it back or share it with anyone, that's perfectly fine, and we encourage you and urge you to do so.
Yeah, thanks Mirela and Mansour for collaborating with us.
Absolutely.
Really
Thank
good.
you, everyone.
Fantastic.
Mirela,
Thank you.
specifically you.
Thank you for
Thank
the
you.
cool questions.
Amazing slides. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Very
Bye.
cool, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.